live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up.
Feels like the right time to hear that today with a big game on deck this weekend. Obviously, number one Oregon coming to town. Listen, it felt bleak there for a while. It felt bleak for the Michigan football season for a while. But I'm going to be honest, man. The potential, the prospect of beating the number one team in Ann Arbor this weekend. It's got me feeling a certain type of way about what's possible this year. We're going to get into score predictions, as we get toward the end of the show, Trent. But are you feeling it? Do you feel the juice is back? We talked about it last week. It felt like there was no juice for the Michigan State game. Is this doing something for you? Are you feeling a little more alive ahead of Saturday?
Yeah, I'm feeling it, man. I'm feeling it. We got the number one team coming into Ann Arbor, and I mean the initial view of the game sounds like it should be pretty fun, but whatever happens on the field, it could be a different story. I don't know.
Oh my! Listen to this. Listen to that. That sounds a little Debbie Downer-ish. I hope that's not a. I don't know what your score prediction is. I haven't looked at it yet. Yes, Trent. Look at him, fresh haircut over there.
Yeah, I think it looks great.
I mean, you look like you're. I don't know, like you're about ready to fly a fighter jet over there or something like that. Just trimmed and high and tight. It looks good. Listen, we started the show 15 minutes late today. Full disclosure.
And it's not Trent's fault. It's not, once again, not Trent's fault.
Well, I don't know. Once again, we had to not reschedule the show,
but we started early because of me, but we didn't start late because of me.
We started early because of you on Wednesday because of said haircut. We started a little bit late for me today because look, there's no way to lie about it. There's no way around it. I overdid it last night with Halloween. I had a glass of wine. I don't really drink all that much. I had a glass of wine. I probably had about 35 mini Kit Kats along with some mini Snickers, some other random candy bits that were in there. And then after that, I polished it off with about 25 frozen chicken nuggets with some barbecue sauce. And then I went to bed, and I was telling Trent before we went live here, I was fighting for my life in the middle of the night. I had acid reflux. I had heartburn. I thought I was dying. And then this morning I woke up with a hangover, and I'm trying to figure out, like, what the hell? Like, I only had a glass of wine, and it's like, oh yeah, I also had all the candy, all the chicken nuggets right before bed. So your boy was hurting here. I definitely am working through some sort of that's right, Darren. Yeah. You can't be doing that when you're 40 years old. You got to make better life decisions. And I clearly, I went overboard for Halloween last night, but listen, we can't deal with what I'm dealing with here. We got to break, we got to push through. We got to find a way to talk about, obviously a massive opportunity for the Michigan Wolverines. And I didn't realize that Michigan hasn't beaten a number one ranked team since 1984, which again, if you want to know how long that is, that was the year I was born. I'm 40 years old. So the last time Michigan did it, 1984 in Ann Arbor against Miami. That is the last time the Wolverines, I got my wife in here talking about, talking trash. The last time the Wolverines beat the number one team in the country, the University of Miami, it was in Ann Arbor. So it's been a minute since Michigan has been able to do that. And before we get into the Oregon stuff, there's a little bit of movement on the recruiting trail that I really feel like we need to discuss that has happened since the last time we did go live. And where's a good place to start? I mean, you put out the article with the recruit that Michigan landed on the recruiting trail today, 3-star, 4-star, depending on what recruiting service you buy into. We know that some people out there are very into that, but that I guess On3 has him listed as a 4-star. Trent, what little do you know about Michigan's latest commit to the 2025 class?
Yeah, it's Benny Patterson out of Indiana. He's been committed to Cincinnati since April, I believe. I truly don't know a ton about him. He's been a late riser. He's been rising up the recruiting ranks since football season for his high school year. He has a couple of really good offers: USC, Penn State, LSU, and then there's one more pretty good one, including Michigan. And he made the flip today to come to Michigan, and now they have 3 defensive linemen committed to in the 2025 class. And there's obviously a few more big time recruits that are considering Michigan who are also committed to other schools. So maybe the dominoes are going to start falling Michigan's way.
Yeah, I mean, they need to start falling pretty soon. We're now in the month of November. The early signing period is coming up soon, and I think that, if you are talking about big time flips like a Shamari Earls type guy, or dare I say it, a Bryce Underwood type flip, like you want to have that happen in time for other guys to be able to make some decisions as well, right? Because I think the big belief with a guy like Bryce Underwood, assuming you can make that happen, is if you do get Bryce Underwood to flip, you're not just getting Bryce Underwood as a result. Going to get all the guys that want to play with a guy like Bryce Underwood offensively. And so, yeah, I mean, it seems like the action is picking up, and we're going to see more movement here in the coming days. But, particularly with a guy like Bryce Underwood, obviously that has been the talk of the town, at least as far as the recruiting stuff is concerned. And we discussed it on the last show. We thought that there would be some collateral damage, some fallout from it. We were more so focused on what it meant for Jaden Davis. But yesterday we did see a consequence of what it means to be, reportedly throwing $5 million at a quarterback like Bryce Underwood. And that came in the form of the decommitment from 4-star quarterback Carter Smith, who is Michigan's only quarterback commitment in the 2025 class. So now Michigan has no quarterback committed in the 2025 class. Trent, I guess, were you surprised that Carter Smith opted to decommit, just given all of the smoke around a guy like Bryce Underwood, or did it come as a bit of a surprise to you?
I actually was a little bit surprised. We're talking about a kid who's been committed since November, and he's actually helped Michigan big time recruit the class that it has right now in the 2025 cycle. At the same time, though, you can't blame him. I'm sure in a way he feels slighted that he has been recruited and he's been committed. And now all of a sudden Michigan's throwing the bag at Bryce Underwood and offering, I've been hearing anywhere between $5 and $10 million to bring this kid in from LSU and trying to flip him. So, I mean, you can't blame the kid for feeling this way. I mean, I just saw a report not too long ago that Carter Smith's taken a visit to Wisconsin this weekend, and Wisconsin and Clemson and Penn State are now in the mix to land him. So, I mean, you're talking about big programs that now want him, and he's going to go see what he can get other places.
Yeah, and I mean, let me ask you this. Now that Michigan does not have a quarterback committed in the 2025 class, you do have Jaden Davis here. You've got Brady Hart on deck, assuming that you can keep him in the fold. What is the concern level now with Carter Smith out? And do you feel like it even puts that much more pressure on Michigan to close the deal with Bryce Underwood? Like, if they don't land Bryce Underwood and you lose Carter Smith, that's not a great situation. Do you think that Carter Smith leaving signals maybe what's potentially happening there with Bryce Underwood?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying into that just yet. I think that a big part of it was Carter Smith felt slighted and he wanted to go see what other places had for him. But obviously, I mean, I think the talk is real. I think Michigan is definitely trying to do whatever that it can to land a guy like Bryce Underwood. And I mean, that's very apparent right now. There's too much out there saying that Michigan is offering what it's offering to get him to come back into the fold. But even if Michigan doesn't land Underwood, there are ways now to combat that with the transfer portal. There's going to be, when that portal opens, there's going to be all kinds of kids that enter the portal. And we're going to be talking about big time quarterbacks that we would have never thought about entering the portal. I mean, it happened last year with Cam Ward and Dylan Gabriel and other guys. So it's going to happen. I think people are going to have to be a little patient, and then Michigan can probably go land 2 or 3 guys in the portal to help build depth.
Yeah, and you know what the good news about it is? Like, some of those big time quarterbacks that may enter the portal, it never felt like Michigan was going to be a destination because they didn't want to play ball NIL wise. And I think what we're learning with the Bryce Underwood stuff is there are going to be guys that are on the table now, guys that are real options for Michigan that wouldn't have been options last year, the year before, and the year before that, because they are willing to look at a guy. If they think there's enough value, if they think there's enough potential, they're willing to throw $5 million, maybe even more at a guy like that. And maybe it comes out of the portal. I don't know if there's a Julian Sayin type quarterback in the portal, if there is a Dylan Gabriel type quarterback in the portal. And if you're Michigan, if you swing and miss on Bryce Underwood, there is that. You can fall back onto the transfer portal and see what you can get out of there. And then there's also Jaden Davis still sitting there. We're not really sure what we're going to get out of him. I didn't know that this is true, and I cannot confirm this, but Ricky from the Facebook page says Carter Smith also has a Block M tattoo that he's going to have to get removed now. I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. I mean, Ricky, can you confirm that that's the case? Does he really have a Block M tattoo on him? I mean, that's a tough look. Anybody who's gotten a tattoo early, it's, chances are the first one you get when you're young, it's going to be a mistake.
That's a bold strategy.
It's a bold strategy. Yeah, I don't know. Look, if you think that there's no question that Carter Smith's decision to decommit had to do with I don't know if it's entirely, but a good portion of it had to do with what's going on with Bryce Underwood. And if you want evidence of that, look no further than Carter Smith's father, who is pretty active on social media, and I think he's made his thoughts known. His father recently shared something on Twitter, which was, I think this was maybe 2 or 3 years ago when Jim Harbaugh was at the Ferris State football camp, and I was there. I attended that. And it's where Jim Harbaugh is talking about Michigan being transformational versus transactional. And that was sort of Michigan's stance on NIL all along, is that we're not going to pay guys. We're not going to pay you up front to get you here. Once you come here, this is a transformational experience at the University of Michigan, opportunity at the University of Michigan. So Carter Smith's father retweeted that. He also signed on to this, which came courtesy of a random weirdo Buckeye fan of all places for it to come. But here's what this Buckeye fan had to say on Twitter. Again, keep in mind, this is coming from an Ohio State random fan on Twitter. But the guy says, I need people to recognize what the F is going on here. Michigan is openly, publicly, and desperately offering another quarterback in this class $5 million. Some say even more than that to a kid that's right down the damn street. In reality, doesn't want to go to Michigan. This kid and his family have been 100% loyal to Michigan and actually really wanted to be a Michigan Wolverine. And for the last 3 weeks, Michigan has been publicly going right past this kid, not giving an F about him. Michigan needs to get their crap together because this right here is not the way. So essentially what this Ohio State fan is saying is, Michigan's basically ignoring a guy like Carter Smith who wants to be there and fawning over a guy like Bryce Underwood who doesn't want to be here. And, regardless of whether or not you believe that, you put any stock into that, whatever, it doesn't matter. Overall point being Carter Smith's father signed on to that. He agreed with it.
Yep.
So that tells you everything you need to know about what the mindset of that family is. Whether or not you believe that's true, whether or not you feel that way, it very much feels like Carter Smith and his family in general, they feel slighted by this late push to put all the eggs in the basket of a guy like Bryce Underwood.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most of what as to why he decommitted. I think it's just the fact that Smith and his family feel slighted that Michigan is doing what it's doing. But like I said on Wednesday, I think if you're going to compete with the best of the best, and you have to do what the best teams are doing, and that's going out and trying to land the top prospects. And if you have to offer them a lot of money to do so, then you have to do it. Like, you have to play the same game that Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia's doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality. You can try to turn Michigan into a villain, and especially if you're an Ohio State fan. Look, what are you talking about? Ohio State is racking up 5-star QB after 5-star QB. They are loading the quarterback room, and all of a sudden you got something to say about what's happening in Ann Arbor. Like, this is what college football is now. And Trent said this earlier in the week, and I agree with him. I mean, put your big boy pants on. If you're coming to Michigan, come here to compete and understand and take into account that Michigan is now at a place where they are going to try to load up however they can. And if you think you're good enough to compete within that, then I'm sure Michigan's happy to have you and go out and compete and try to win the job. But if you don't think you can compete among a set of elite high school kids, then probably Michigan isn't for you. And to be honest, Trent, I love that that's where we're at now. I love that that's the tone that's being set. We're going to bring them in. We're going to roll the balls out. And we're going to find out who can take this job. And if Carter Smith, you think you're that guy, great. Jaden Davis, you think you're that guy, awesome. Bryce Underwood, if you can get it done, cool. But I think that's where we are at now, where you have to load up on guys. You can't put all your eggs into one basket and just hope that some one guy can float you for a year. And I think that a lot of probably that shift in tone or that shift in mindset has to do with what we've seen this season. This season has proven the hard way how critical it is. You got to have a gamer in your quarterback room, and not just one. You probably got to have a couple in case something goes wrong. If you do not have a guy at quarterback, that's how you get to a season like we've had here in Ann Arbor. So it's going to be really interesting, man. I don't know. I don't know what it looks like with Bryce Underwood. I don't know if Michigan's ever going to be able to offer enough, because I still fall back to the thing that he said over the summer where, quarterback development was an issue for him. It was a concern in terms of considering the University of Michigan. And I think that if it's, sure, part of the recruiting pitch has to be money, but I think if you're Sharon Moore, doesn't it also have to include the staff? Maybe you are bringing somebody in as a quarterback's coach. Maybe you are bringing in a new offensive coordinator. Maybe you are I just think it's going to take more than money to get Bryce Underwood. He's going to have to see that something from a staff standpoint is going to change. Who's going to develop me? Who's going to get me to where I need to be? Money's great. If you can put $5-6 million on the table, that's awesome. But I also need to know what you're going to do from a staff standpoint. What's this offense going to look like, and who's going to be my quarterback's coach? I think that that's going to be something that probably has to be a part of the recruiting pitch from Sharon Moore as well.
Yeah, obviously money's great, and if you can offer the kid more money than what LSU's offering, and that's actually possible because Michigan has a ton of alums, successful alums that are willing to put out money. And from my understanding, the Dave Portnoy money, that's not even involved yet into this recruitment. Like, this is coming from the big donors and guys who want to see Michigan succeed that graduate from Michigan, and maybe he comes into play in a different scenario.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're right. Like, the money's great. And if you can offer him up to $10 million to come here, LSU is going to do the best that it can do to match it. But you're going to have to buy him in on a scheme, coaching, development, going to the NFL as a top 5 pick. You're going to have to do a lot of swaying to get Bryce Underwood to come here. But it definitely sounds like Michigan's somewhat making a move to do that. Whether he's going to do it or not, I don't know. But I think it's good for Michigan fans to know that Michigan's now playing this game.
Yeah, and I think that's it right there. It's that Michigan is willing to play it. And I think if you're willing to play it, all the things that felt like limitations before, all the guys that you would see moving around and all the players in the portal, and you thought there's no chance we're going to get a guy like that. We're just not going to be able to pay. Like, Michigan is now at that place now where all of these options have become realistic, even a guy like Bryce Underwood. But I think this is interesting, and maybe this is kind of a cool hypothetical way to look at this, but Bradley William from the Facebook page, again, phenomenal profile picture there. Every time I see that pop up, I'm like, that's just it. That's true love right there if you're a Michigan man and woman. But he says from the Facebook page, if Underwood accepts, do we lose Jaden Davis to the portal and possibly lose Brady in 2026? So the way I want to present this to you, Trent, is in 2 parts. One, if Bryce Underwood commits, do you think you lose Jaden Davis and potentially Brady Hart in 2026?
Well, Brady Hart, I'm definitely leaning towards no, because he's a year behind Underwood. If Underwood's as good as he's supposed to be, he's only going to be in college for 3 years.
Yep.
He will be leaving after his junior year to go to the NFL. So Brady Hart could redshirt his freshman year and then take over as soon as Underwood's done. He could play 3 years at Michigan. And then if he's as good as he's supposed to be, he'll be off to the NFL. The one that you might lose potentially is Jaden Davis, because he came into the fold last season. He's redshirting this year, and the kid probably wants to start next season. But if you go and land Underwood, then obviously if he's coming to Michigan, there's a more than real possibility that he's going to be your day 1 starter as a true freshman. So what does that mean about Jaden Davis? Well, he will either stay and compete and try to start, or he will be off somewhere else to to try to start there as well.
Yeah, we talked about that on Wednesday. Like, even if Bryce Underwood isn't your year one starter, doesn't start as a true freshman, there's no way in hell he's sitting as a sophomore. Like, at most, if you're Jaden Davis, you've got 1 year if Bryce Underwood commits before he's going to be the guy. So let me ask you this. This is part 2 of Bradley Williams' question, and I'm going to add it on. We already know that Michigan has lost Carter Smith as a result of going after Bryce Underwood. But if Michigan can get Bryce Underwood, but it comes at the expense of losing Jaden Davis and losing Brady Hart, are you signing on to that? Is that a worthwhile trade for you? It's going to cost you Carter Smith, it's going to cost you Jaden Davis, and it's going to cost you Brady Hart, but you get Bryce Underwood in Ann Arbor. Would you take the deal?
I think so. I think you do. We're talking, Brady Hart, while he could end up as a 5-star quarterback, and I mean, he's got all the traits that he could come in day one and start for Michigan, but he's also a junior. You don't know what that recruitment's going to be like in a year from now. You're talking about the number 1 rated player in all of college football. Jaden Davis is here now. He's not even getting a sniff of playing time, which tells you he's probably not ready to play here in Michigan. And if you got to think about recruiting. If you land Underwood, more than likely he's going to have guys follow him to Michigan. This recruiting class could be a top 5 class easily if you can land Underwood, and your future looks really good if you can land a guy like that.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And look, I'm not suggesting that Brady Hart will leave. I think he would stay as well, but it's more, like I said, it's a hypothetical. Like, do you believe in Bryce Underwood that much to where you'd be willing to sacrifice all 3 guys? And, Trent says yes. And to be quite honest, I'm in the same boat. Like, I feel like this guy has the potential to be, Heisman Trophy guy, a guy that can lead you to a national championship, a guy that can bring other elite players here, and really a guy that can help transform the Michigan offense and really bring it into the new era of college football. And when you can do that, other younger guys on the recruiting trail, other elite quarterbacks are going to be looking at Bryce Underwood and Ann Arbor and saying, yeah, I can see a future for me there as well. So I think that I just think that there's a whole lot of benefit to trying to get this guy, to play at the University of Michigan. But again, it's going to be, I feel like it's an uphill battle because it isn't just money. And I think it was Underwood's father who said that months back. That might have been over the summer as well. I think he did an interview with On3 and, was talking about the decision-making process. And he said something to the effect of like, look, money's great, but that's not going to be the deciding factor for Bryce. Bryce wants to go somewhere where he can be developed, somewhere where he can win at a high level and go and play at the next level. And so that goes into what we were just saying, Trent, that yes, $5 million, $6 million, that's a hell of a start if you're the University of Michigan. But what other pieces are you going to put in place in order to get this guy to really see a future at Michigan? And I think that's why they're paying Sharon more the big bucks. He's got to figure that out. Seeing some comments here, CJ. I love the thought of Michigan taking chances and not just doing what's safe and doing the easy thing. Yeah, I think that a lot of people are in that boat. There's a lot of people also that are turned off at the idea that Michigan is now willing to pay $5 million for a high school quarterback. But I think that is now a small segment of the fan base. I think the vast majority of Michigan fans are at a point where they're like, we want to compete. We don't want to have down years. We want to be in the college football playoff. We see what's happening elsewhere. We want the success to continue at Michigan. If it means you got to go and play the game, then play the game. And if down the road the rules and the regulations change, then you've got to obviously work within that. But right now, to put yourself at a disadvantage for the sake of wanting to stand on this hill and be the beacon of, transformational versus transactional, like that's all fine and good when you're winning natties and conference championships. It's not that great when you're 5-3 and fighting for your life to just become bowl eligible. And so I think that, everybody was on board with it when it was working, but when it stops working, I think, people are more than happy to let other people spend their money on recruits. I know I'm one of them.
And I've said this before. I might have said before the start of the season, but I think that this is what it took for Michigan to finally start spending money. Like it took them to have a down year after a great three-year stretch of, hey, maybe our theory isn't going to always work, and we have to start playing doing what Oregon and Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama and all of these other big programs do, and that's spend money and using the NIL or other ways of doing so. But these donors that are coming forth now and putting this money on the table for Bryce Underwood, they've been around forever. They've been around Michigan for a long time, and it's taken it this long for Michigan to be 5-3 and a gauntlet of a schedule left for them to finally be like, okay, we're willing to help and let Michigan play this game.
Yeah, and again with the quarterback situation this year, it is really been we all know that the quarterback position is important, and I think like even with an extent to a certain extent with Cade McNamara, like it was good, but it wasn't great, but you felt good because you knew JJ McCarthy was right there on deck, and you knew that you were going to get something special there, and obviously it turned out the way it did. But I think when you don't have that, yeah, it can force you to make some changes, and if you can get a guy like Bryce Underwood in Ann Arbor, I just think that really is going to set the tone for years to come. So we'll see what happens there. But again, a lot of movement on the recruiting trail for the University of Michigan. Things are going to get really interesting here real fast. And it is entirely possible that Sharon Moore could land a top 10 recruiting class in his first year, which I think, you can be frustrated with some things you've seen this year, but what we're really going to learn about Sharon Moore, as I've said before, is what he does as a result of this season. He is now, this is his first year as head coach. He's seen some things with the coordinators. He's seen some things on the roster, but this is his baby now. He doesn't have to check with Jim Harbaugh. He gets to make the decisions now on what this thing looks like. And I think that we're going to find out a lot about what Sharon Moore's vision of this football program is heading into the offseason and what he decides to do about it next year. So I'm excited for that. Stay tuned on the recruiting trails. Wink Martindale would say buckle up, which is kind of weird using Wink Martindale because Wink Martindale might need to buckle up if the defense doesn't get significantly better here in the latter part of the season. But Trent, let's change the discussion from the recruiting trail because we could sit here and talk about Bryce Underwood for hours and hours. We love to do that. But let's change the discussion to what's going on this weekend with the University of Michigan, with Oregon coming to town. We'll get into our buy or sell segment here. This is where Trent basically throws out, certain scenarios that he thinks could play out on the weekend, and we're going to decide whether or not we're going to buy or sell it. So Trent, I'll let you kick it off. Let's get it going. Buy or sell.
So this first one probably dictates on how you think the game's going to go Saturday. But do you buy or sell that Michigan's going to pass for over 200 yards?
Golly, that just
as a team, it could be Davis Warren, it could be Alex Orji, it could be Donovan Edwards. I don't know. It
just seems like such a big number for Michigan. Not in general, not in college football, but for Michigan, 200 yards just seems like such a big number.
I want to remind you that
please do give me a reminder here.
Game 2 against Texas, they threw for 204, and then Illinois 208. And think about how those games went.
I'm gonna sell it, man. I'm gonna sell it because I just don't think the X factor here is Colston Loveland. Is Colston Loveland going to have 70 to 80 yards receiving? And if he does, that's the only way that they get there. And there's a very real chance that happens because I think if you want to beat Oregon, if you're Davis Warren, you're going to have to lean heavily on number 18, as is the case every single week. But I think even then, they're just the rest of the support staff isn't there. The wide receivers just aren't getting it done. And I don't know what the issue is. And so could I see 160, 170, 180 yards out of Davis Warren on Saturday? Absolutely. But I do not think they get to 200 yards. I'm going to sell it.
So I'm buying it, but kind of for a bad reason, to be honest with you. I think Oregon with their offense, it could get down to a quick lead. And we're talking about like Texas, how it went in the first half where Oregon or Texas got ahead by 14, I think it was early on. And then Michigan abandoned the run and then they started throwing the football. And I could see the same thing happening on Saturday where Michigan kind of abandons the run because it has to. And then you start seeing Davis Warren throwing it because, again, they have to try to score quickly.
Yeah. Go Bosky. How dare you? How dare you bring that negative energy into our live show? This is unacceptable. He says Michigan is going to get mopped.
And then the next comment, he says they're going to get shut out.
Or probably shut us out. No, but Trent, I mean, you're right. That is, we saw it against Texas. Texas got out to an early lead. Michigan had to abandon what they love to do, the bread and butter. I think that was the game where, what was it? Donovan Edwards had 8 attempts. Khalil Mullings had 6 rushing attempts, something like that. Like at one point they were like, we can't afford to run the football anymore. We're going to have to try to throw it. And there is a real scenario where we see a repeat of that on Saturday, where Oregon does jump out to a quick lead. But I mean, overall, I think that I just don't see it going the way that it went against Oregon. You saw a couple CBS analysts, they brought it up as well that, Oregon right now, 2-touchdown favorite, but I just think Michigan is running out of opportunities to have a statement in a game. I think Texas was an opportunity. They missed it. I think USC was an opportunity. They made it. But in hindsight, USC, I mean, what's Michigan's best win on a schedule right now? USC?
It's got to be USC, yeah.
And what is USC? I mean, they're nothing special.
Yeah, I think they're 4-4, but they're also like 8 plays away from being undefeated. So I think they're a good 4-4 team, but they are 4-4.
I mean, good 4-4 team. Like,
I think they're better than what Michigan is right now, and Michigan beat them in Ann Arbor.
Right, but the overall point being, Michigan's best win came against a very shaky USC team. So this is now Michigan's next attempt to get a real signature win here in 2024. The type of win that can really change the narrative, change the perception on what this team is all about, what this coaching staff is all about, what this program is all about. And I think these guys are going to be up for it. I think they're going to be up for the challenge, and I think they are going to give the Ducks, a full 4-quarter fist fight. Does that mean they can throw for 200 yards? Does that mean they can get the W? I'm not exactly sure. Are we still on the 200-yard passing question?
We are. We have not moved on.
Holy shit. Talk about going off the rails there. Let's bring it back in. I'm going to sell it. I don't think Michigan gets to over 200 passing yards on Saturday.
All right. So once again, I'm buying that. Chris is selling it. So next one, we saw Michigan. Michigan had 0 turnovers last weekend. Are you over? We're going to do over and under for this one. Over under.
Sure.
Does Michigan have over or under 1.5 turnovers as a team?
Oh my goodness. I'll look, if it's over, they're going to lose. Michigan is not good enough offensively, or if we're being honest, defensively, where they can afford turnovers. And I think that Sharon Moore has been very, very clear on that they have to protect the ball. And I think that because he's been clear on that, because that has been a point of emphasis, because they were able to avoid it against Michigan State, I'm going to go under. I do think they turn the ball over. I do think Davis Warren throws an interception on Saturday, but I will go over 1.5. I mean, Oregon's secondary is really good. At every single level, Oregon is good defensively. And I think that Michigan is going to be at a point where they have to throw the ball down the field. They've got to try to push it down. Somebody said, go to Amarian Walker. I don't even know if Amarian Walker is going to be healthy.
He was out last week.
Right. He was out last week. I don't know if he's going to be able to play this weekend, but I think at some point in time on Saturday, Michigan's going to be in a position where they have to throw the ball, and I think Oregon's going to make them pay for it. So I'll take the under on 1.5, but I do think the Wolverines have a turnover.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I think that's very possible that Michigan has 1 turnover, but I feel like this has been such a point of emphasis now for several weeks from Sharon Moore and the coaching staff. And it's something that I know they practice about not turning the football over. Yeah. And I feel like we saw enough from Davis Warren last week where he went through his progressions. I can't talk again. And he looked off of Colston Loveland. He found Tyler Morris. He found other receivers where he could throw to. And that was in Texas when he threw the 2 or 3 interceptions, whatever it was. That was his problem. He would lock in on his target and wouldn't go off of it. And whether he was open or not was a different story. And he turned the ball over because of it. I feel like he's improved on that in that aspect, even though it's only been 1 game. I think that we saw enough to believe that he made that improvement where, yeah, he might turn it over 1 time or Michigan could fumble the football, but I don't think it's going to be like the Texas game. So I also think it'll be under.
Yeah, and keep in mind, going into that Michigan State game, Michigan was averaging over 2 turnovers per game. Over 2 turnovers per game through 8 weeks, right? Or was that 7 weeks? What are we in? What week is
that? Was 7 weeks.
Through 7 weeks, right? They had over 15 turnovers through 7 weeks. And so the fact that they were able to avoid, and if you look at the way the Michigan State game played out, if Michigan has 1 or 2 turnovers in that game, they're probably not winning that football game. That was a 1-touchdown football game. So the margin for error for Michigan in every game this year remaining on the schedule is 0. You cannot turn the ball over if you hope to win. Certainly can't do it against Oregon in that type of offense.
And if you turn it over once, you better force 2 or 3 turnovers. Like, you need that ball to bounce your way several times if you do.
So we're both under. We think it's going to happen, but we're under on 1.5. Got it.
All right. So Oregon is actually one of the best teams on third down. They convert 50% of their tries on third down. Michigan defense, one of the worst. They allow 41% conversion rate. Does Oregon convert 50% or more of their third downs on Saturday?
Yes. Yes, because I think Dan Lanning is a hell of a coach. I think their offense is dynamic and they've got a quarterback who's mobile. And I think it's really going to test Michigan's discipline defensively. And I think that has been a point where the inconsistency has really, really put Michigan in a tough spot. And it's one of the reasons why they can't get the defense off the field on third down. And so I think Oregon will be comfortably over 50% on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but if Michigan has any chance to win whatsoever, that's one of the biggest keys to this game is you have to get off the field on third downs. I don't know how you do it because Michigan several times this season gets teams in third and long. I'm talking like 3rd and 9 or longer, and they convert on Michigan. How do you stop that? I don't know. I don't know if it's a full personnel issue, coaching, or combination, probably a combination of factors. But we're talking about the number 1 ranked team in the country. They are, I think, the ninth best team in the country on third down conversions. And I think it's sadly going to be a long day for this Michigan defense on third down. So I agree with you. I think it'll be over.
Really? Can you feel the tension in the air right now?
You know, I can already see where this is trending with Trent's score prediction at the end of the show. Let's get into the next buy or sell because I'm starting to get sad.
All right. So Oregon has given up 10 sacks all season on offense. Their offensive line has allowed 45 pressures, which equals 5.6 per game. Could Michigan rack up 3.5 sacks? So over under 3.5 sacks for Michigan.
I'm going to go under. I think the front four will get pressure. I think they're going to force Dylan Gabriel to have to make plays on the fly. But the problem is he's really, really good at doing that. And he's a very experienced quarterback. He just doesn't make a ton of mistakes. And so, no, I don't think they're going to get to him 3.5 times. I think, the over, right? Over under 3.5.
3.5, yes.
I'm going to take the under comfortably. I think they get to him a couple times. I think Josiah Stewart's going to be in the backfield. We'll see what Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant can do. But yeah, he's just too quick. He's too nimble. He's too smart. He gets the ball out on time. He doesn't get rattled. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I will take the under, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm with you on the under. However, I think that Michigan's front four actually matches up really well against Oregon's starting offensive line. The tackles have allowed a lot of pressures this season where Derek Moore was insane against Michigan State. I think he had 7 pressures just by himself. Josiah Stewart, he's been awesome all season long.
Yeah, but Aiden Childs gets sacks a lot, right?
Michigan State's offensive line is not Oregon's, right? I mean, Oregon is head and shoulders better than what Michigan State has. I'm just saying, I think that Michigan's front four is really good. On Pro Football Focus, they actually have the number 1 ranked pass rush in all of college football, which is impressive.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to how they scheme things up. Last week, and we talked about this, but Wink had Mason Graham lined up as at edge on 3rd and long, and Michigan State converted every single time that he had him on the edge. And I don't understand why. Put your best 4 guys out there, whether you blitz or not, put your best 4 guys out there, line them up where they should be lined up at and attack. So we'll see what happens. I agree with you. I think it'll be under, but I could see Michigan's front four having a good day against Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. And I think that, when you look at Oregon's schedule and kind of what they faced against Ohio State, I mean, they're not going to see another front four like this. And so I think that this is going to be for as much as Michigan has issues defensively, this is going to be a challenge for the Oregon offense. They are going to have to deal with some guys who are some first rounders, and we'll see, is Will Johnson going to be out there in the secondary? I think that's a big mystery right now, but overall, Dylan Gabriel, there's no question about it that he is going to be challenged against Michigan. It's just a matter of, he's just nimble. He's really good at getting out of the pocket and creating on the fly. And I don't think they're going to get to him. I mean, you're talking about 4 sacks if you go with the over. Yeah, I'll take the under on that comfortably.
All right. Last one, Chris. Dylan Gabriel, his lowest output of the year passing is 243 yards, and that came against Boise State. He has been over 300 yards 3 times. My over under for Gabriel is set at 260.5 yards.
I'm going to take the. I am going to take the over. The last I checked, Oregon's averaging right at 300 yards per game through the air. I'm gonna take the over, and we'll get into it in the score prediction. But I think he is going to.
Yeah, so Gabriel is averaging 296.4 yards through the air.
Yeah, 296.4. Yeah, so I will comfortably take the over. Would you put it at 260?
260.5. Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna go over that.
I think so too. And I don't think it matters if Will Johnson's playing or not, because you have two other guys that you can throw at. And I mean, obviously you have Will Johnson. It helps you because he can guard either Evan Stewart or Tez Johnson, but they have so many playmakers, and you're going to have to see Jair Hill play well. Amir Hall has to play well. Zeke Berry, Makari Page, like you're going to have all these guys who have struggled play their best game yet. And we haven't seen it happen. We haven't seen the group click on all cylinders yet this season, really. So is it going to start this week? I definitely have my doubts. I think I'm with you. I think he's over 260.5.
But doesn't that give you confidence? The fact that we haven't seen it yet, they're due. It's got to happen one time this year. There's got to be one game where they put it all together. Now, I don't know if we want it to be this one or the last one in Columbus, preferably both, but there has to be a point in time where this secondary puts it together and has an incredible game against a capable opponent. We have not seen it yet. That is the big question mark. Are we going to see it on Saturday? So is that it for the over-unders?
Yep, that's it. That's all five.
All right, so now we get to the point where we got to figure out, we got to explain, we got to show our work, Trent. We know what we think the score is going to be, but we got to explain it to the good folks out there why we've come to that determination. Trent, I'll let you kick it off. How do you see this one playing out? What is your score prediction this weekend? Michigan versus number 1 Oregon.
So after doing some thinking and soul searching, I changed my prediction from 2-0 Michigan that I made on Wednesday.
Just a defensive slugfest.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I like it.
But, we've seen upsets happen. Vanderbilt beat Alabama this year, and there's been upsets almost every week in college football. Clearly, Michigan is a talented team. They haven't put it all together this season. There's been struggles offensively, more struggles defensively than most of us thought. Then we're talking about the number 1 ranked Oregon Ducks coming into town. They have one of the best offenses in all of college football. They move the ball up and down on Ohio State. They've got an experienced quarterback. They have great playmakers at receiver. Their tight end's good. They have a solid defense. Their secondary is really good. I think Michigan can compete. I do. But I don't know that they can play 4 quarters of football against Oregon. I think Oregon, my preseason prediction, Oregon was going to win the Big Ten, and I think that's looking really good right now. I've got Michigan losing this game 31-17.
Wow.
Can you feel the tension in the air right now?
That is, yeah. I mean, look, I don't think anybody, even the biggest Michigan football fans out there, there's not much you can do to push back on a prediction like that. And, Ralph from the Facebook page, I'm not sure why you're putting this in quotations here. It doesn't require quotations. We are the experts here when it comes to predicting. I mean, just look at our record. We're damn near precise every single weekend. But I mean, it's hard to pick Michigan to win this football game. And when you watch the way Oregon competes and when you look at the way they play on both sides of the ball, they are a complete football team. The Michigan Wolverines are not. They have issues offensively. They have issues defensively. And those issues continue to show up week after week after week. So if you are picking Michigan in this one, you're doing it based on a hope and a prayer. You're hoping that Michigan puts together a full game, and you're hoping that Oregon makes some uncharacteristic mistakes. And it's fine if you want to base it on hope, but I can't sit here and go off of what I hope, because I hope Michigan wins this football game. Dear God, so desperately I hope Michigan wins this football game this weekend, because it would be so fun to come back and talk about it and write about it and all the possibilities that are now on the table if that happens. But Trent, in the real world, here's where I'm at on this thing, man. I think this game is ultimately going to be decided by what happens with Michigan's secondary and how they handle Oregon's passing attack. And I just do not have a lot of faith in the Michigan secondary. To your point, even if Will Johnson is back in the lineup, Oregon has weapons at wide receiver, and they have got a very experienced and savvy quarterback who knows how to get the ball from point A to point B. We saw it. I mean, dude, look at what Oregon's offense did to Denzel Burke. I'm not even sure. Is Denzel Burke even has he been able to play since then?
I think he's still down.
You might just have to hang it up after a game like that. Oregon's offense knows how to exploit weaknesses in the secondary, which is why they went after Denzel Burke. They saw weakness. They went after it. I think they're going to try to do more of the same in Ann Arbor against the Wolverines. And if there's one thing we know about this Michigan defense, the secondary, it has issues. I think the front four is going to be able to create pressure, and I think that they're going to be able to get to Dylan Gabriel. But if he can get the ball out of his hands, I think there's going to be a wide receiver open downfield for Oregon, and they're going to be able to put 6 points on the board. So I've got this one playing out, unfortunately, Oregon 34, Michigan 17. I do think it's close in the first half, closer than most people think it's going to be. But what we've seen all too often from this team is solid first half. You go into the half, you come out, the offense looks flat. There's nothing you can do. Oregon is a much more complete team than what Michigan saw, far more than what they saw last weekend against Michigan State. And probably, is there any probably about it? This is the best, most complete team they're going to see all year, even including Texas, I would say, on both sides of the ball. I would put Oregon above that. I just think it's going to be a big, big challenge for the Michigan Wolverines. So that's what I got. 34-17. Trent, you're 31-17. Just a couple of gloomy gusses here on a Friday pregame. But we'll be down in the big house tomorrow, 3:30. It's on CBS if you're not going to be there. Incredible opportunity for the Michigan Wolverines to do something they haven't done since 1984, which is knock off the number one team in the country. We will be back on Monday to talk about it all. Until then, we appreciate all of you in the comments section here for following.
Let's hope we're wrong, Chris.
Let's hope we're wrong, and we're coming back on Monday talking about a big victory. Until then, have yourself a good weekend. Don't eat too much of that Halloween candy, by the way.
Don't be like Chris.
Bad stuff. Don't be like me.